Henry Kissinger once warned, "It may be dangerous to be America's enemy, but to be America's friend is fatal." This grim take on U.S. foreign policy is now hitting Ukraine the hardest. Donald Trump's surprising reversal on Ukraine has caught the attention of both Europe and the U.S. After previously championing aid to Kyiv, he now appears keen to reach an agreement with Moscow, one that could abandon Ukraine altogether. Behind closed doors, Trump's camp has reportedly proposed major compromises to Russia. These include the ceding of Ukrainian land, lifting of sanctions, withdrawing U.S. troops from Eastern Europe, and permanently blocking Ukraine from joining NATO. What's more concerning is that these offers seem one-sided. Russia has yet to offer anything meaningful in return. So, this dramatic shift raises a serious question. Why is Trump so willing to give up so much? What does he hope to gain from a deal with Putin that could justify leaving Ukraine in such a vulnerable state? Ukraine, once firmly backed by both Democrats and Republicans, now risks being left behind. Is Trump changing course for strategic reasons? Or is this just reckless deal-making? To understand his intentions, we need to zoom out and view the broader strategic context. Trump put it simply in an interview from October 2024, "You never want Russia and China to unite. I'm going to break that up, and I believe I can." The Ukraine war has dragged on far longer than many expected. It's draining American resources and attention. Trump and his advisors argue it's time to pivot, shifting the U.S.'s focus to containing China rather than being locked into prolonged conflicts in Eastern Europe. Trump's approach to Russia resembles a Cold War tactic, one crafted by none other than Kissinger himself. The logic: if two adversaries are close, split one from the other. That's what worked in the 1970s, when the U.S. built ties with China to isolate the Soviet Union. Now, Trump aims to reverse that strategy, wooing Russia in order to counter China's rise. In this grand strategy, Ukraine becomes a pawn, sacrificed in the pursuit of a larger geopolitical shift. In international politics, alliances are often temporary, lasting only until a more attractive deal presents itself. But Russia and China aren't blind to Trump's play. They've seen this coming. In anticipation, Beijing has stepped up its charm offensive, working to deepen its ties with Moscow. China is organizing nuclear talks, participating in joint naval drills, and promoting Russian goods in its markets. China is now importing more Russian oil than ever before, and their trade has reached new record highs. Still, it's important to note that some of this cooperation may be exaggerated. Take the reports about China and Russia's growing coordination in international affairs. At first glance, it seems objective, but when you dig into the sources, over 54% are state-controlled or government-aligned, casting doubt on their reliability. Back to Trump's Ukraine peace proposal. Details are limited. Neither U.S. nor Russian officials have provided much insight into the scope or nature of the negotiations. What is certain is that these talks are unfolding during the most dangerous phase of the war. In November 2024, the Biden administration allowed Kyiv to strike military targets within internationally recognized Russian borders. They did so using U.S.-supplied ATACMS and UK-made Storm Shadow missiles. Ukraine then launched strikes in regions like Bryansk and Kursk. What alarmed the Kremlin wasn't the physical damage. It was the growing disregard for Russia's nuclear deterrence. Putin has repeatedly stated that Ukrainian forces couldn't possibly operate weapons like ATACMS or Storm Shadow without NATO assistance. From Russia's perspective, when Ukraine uses these weapons, it's essentially NATO striking Russian soil. While prior attacks on Crimea went unanswered, strikes on Russia's mainland cross a dangerous new threshold. In retaliation to what it views as NATO aggression, the Kremlin unveiled a revised nuclear doctrine in November 2024. This policy lowers the bar for deploying nuclear weapons, even against non-nuclear nations like Ukraine. Soon after, Russia fired a nuclear-capable missile at a base in Dnipro. The impact was minor, likely just a show of force. Later, in February 2025, Russia escalated again, this time using an explosive drone to strike the Chernobyl nuclear site. The attack damaged a radiation shield, though thankfully, no leakage occurred. These events underline the mounting nuclear danger and the urgent need for a ceasefire. This is likely why Trump is pushing for a quick settlement with Putin. Under his plan, Ukraine would surrender land, resources, and sovereignty, while the US gains a Russian ally to balance China. Yet, while Trump's approach may appear strategic, it stems from a flawed reading of history and the present. Kissinger's Cold War diplomacy worked because of two key factors. First, by 1971, China and the USSR were already deeply hostile toward each other. Second, Moscow wanted improved ties with Washington to reduce pressure from the arms race and its conflict with Beijing. Those conditions don't exist today. Russia and China aren't ideological twins, but they've become close strategic partners. They both oppose US dominance and are cooperating out of shared interests. And that's enough. After 2014's Crimea annexation and Western sanctions, China became Russia's lifeline. The war in Ukraine made this bond even stronger. With the US and EU increasing sanctions, Russia became almost entirely dependent on China. In recent years, China accounted for 40% of Russia's imports and bought over 30% of its exports. Their military coordination is also expanding, with joint drills and intelligence sharing mechanisms now standard. Each side fills the other's gaps. Russia supplies natural resources and energy. China brings industrial strength and economic support, helping Russia weather the war's financial strain. Together, they may come to dominate Eurasia, which is the nightmare scenario for the US. Of course, Russia doesn't love playing second fiddle to China, but at this point, it knows that China is a vital lifeline, especially with access to Western financial systems cut off. And as China continues rising, Russia sees opportunity rather than threat.